sometimes it's a more powerful thing when you can sit across the table from someone and say, what you currently have is right. And if it's not, please contact me again in the future. And now they're going to trust you even more. Or, that group plan you have, I wouldn't switch that. That's great. So, your Medicare is all set. Thank you very much for your time. And then now they're on your list and they realize you're not a salesperson anymore. You're now an advisor.
Welcome, Model FAs. David DeSell here, president of Model FA and your podcast host. I'm excited to bring to you Scott Nelson today. We're going to be talking about Medicare, and not in the sense of what is Medicare and the nuts and bolts and things like that. And we'll be sharing some resources and guide you to those if you do want to learn more about that, but more so how Medicare can be used as a business development opportunity for the clients and prospects in your world. So with that, Scott Nelson joins us. He is the founder and CEO of Thrive Medicare that was started back in 2015 after nearly 2 decades supporting advisors and their clients through Thrive Wealth Strategies. As one of the first financial advisors in the U.S. to recognize the importance of Medicare to his clients' futures, Scott has built Thrive Medicare into a trusted platform for financial advisors across the U.S. with training, mentorship programs, referral networks, and direct client support. Today, Thrive works with hundreds of financial advisors across the country. Hundreds of high net worth financial advisory clients are referred to Thrive each year for smart guidance and world-class support, and they are growing year over year. His goal is to become the nation's trusted source for fair, friendly, and accessible guidance to Medicare. So with that, Scott, looking forward to the show and welcome.
Thank you. This is a great opportunity to get the word out and such a timely topic with Medicare season approaching.
Love it. So give me some background. So before you got into the Medicare space, I guess just bring us back in time a little bit.
We can all remember when we first started as financial advisors. I was brand new in the business and we had, the stack of leads. As you're a brand new advisor, they give you these old leads, like, 500 of them to just pound the phones. And it wasn't the way I necessarily saw myself building my business. But it was the only resource I had at that point. So a couple of years into the business, a humongous change happened. Now, tell me if this sounds familiar because it's just happened recently again. The government offered an amazing benefit to the population. It was extremely complicated and they only gave you a short window to sign up for it. And at that point, if you didn't sign up for it, they gave you a penalty if you didn't. And that's what happened in Medicare a couple of years into my business. They offered a prescription drug plan for the first time ever to people over 65. Now, I got a phone call from one client who asked me about, what do I do about my Medicare prescription drug plan? Now, I'm licensed to do life and health like most financial advisors, but I didn't know the answer to it. So I really just shrugged my shoulders and I said, let me ask around. About an hour later, my second client over 65 called me with the same exact question. So I walked around my office and there was literally 30 doors to knock on. I asked every single other advisor, some of my managers, some of my mentors, the same question my clients were asking me, and not one single person knew the answer. So I thought to myself, how complicated could this be? So what I did is I actually, if you think back to, the mid 2000s, 2004, 5 range, the internet existed, but it wasn't the same as it is today. Where right now, if I called up my mom and said, hey, mom, take out your iPad, go to Yelp or Google and figure out the best new Thai restaurant in your town, she could probably do it. But if I said something that to her back in 2004, she would have thought I was teasing her. And that's what the people over 65 were facing. In my state, there were literally 14 companies with 3 plans each. So there's 42 different choices to make and really no good way to research it. So when I went to try and do this research, you had to call the 1-800 number and talk to a specific company about their specific plans. And every single one of them wanted to send a salesperson to my house to sell me a Medicare plan. And I just was cringing. I'm thinking, why is this like this? So I wish I had a picture of my office back then because I literally had stacks and stacks of kits from these Medicare companies to research. I took out some spreadsheets. Since I was only a couple of years in the business, I could actually afford the time to do this research. And I only had 6 clients over 65 at that point in my career. And I figured out 2 things. Number one, it was much more complicated than I ever give it credit for. And number 2, there wasn't one right plan for everybody. After all that research, I couldn't go to every single client and say, hey, this is the right plan, sign up for it. And here's how to do it. So that's how I got started with it. And the reason I made it such a large part of my business was the feedback I received from my clients. I only helped 6 people and I barely got paid to do this type of advice, but the value it added to my relationship was immense. And I was shocked by it. So the first year I had 6 of them. And then the following year, all my clients went back to their daily lives and, in retirement, they were playing cards with their friends or, socializing. And the topic of Medicare invariably came up. The second year, based on those 6 referrals, I got 6 clients. I received over 20 referrals to new clients just based on the Medicare opportunity because they were lacking this type of advice. And at that point, I was on the radar of these Medicare companies. And I got a phone call from one of them saying, hey, we never recruited you. We never trained you. Your client satisfaction scores are through the roof. Who are you? After a while, long story short, to cut to the end of it, they asked me to be the lead presenter for their Medicare 101 in my local area. They said, if you pick a couple of towns, we'll give you the information you need. And we want to have you communicate this to the public. And that's how I launched my Medicare business.
Awesome. Now, when you think about, Medicare at that point in time, what I'm hearing, or if I'm hearing it correctly, it wasn't very easy for the client to take a look at what their options were. It's not like there was a website that was like aggregating, these various things and comparing of plans. It was just basically a fragmented industry where clients would have to go and do that on their own, all that research, and in turn, potentially get sold along the way by one of those companies as opposed to sort of an unbiased approach. Because now you partner up with financial advisors to help them with this planning. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you serve essentially as an extension of that financial advisor. So I guess, how does that aggregation work now? Like, how do they go about comparing plans based on the research that you've done and the information that you have? Is it a phone call with, you or your team, or is there a website that they go to compare the plans? Like, how does that experience work for the advisor?
Well, believe it or not, all these years later, they haven't made it easier on the consumer. I read a survey last year that I've referred to about 100 times now. People over 65 were polled and they were asked these pleasant experiences that they dread occur all the time. Number 1 was colonoscopy. Number 2 was shopping for Medicare. Now, just to, kind of drive this point home, what I'll do, David, right now is I'm going to go on to and Google Medicare and your zip code. And I'm just going to just very friendly put your phone number in and you tell me what happens. I'm joking because that's the last thing you ever want to do is go to one of these search engines and put your phone number in. You will be bombarded with telephone calls. And I will get to your answer, but just to kind of show you the power of this. My father, when he was turning 65, his kryptonite was telemarketing. He just, that phone rings and a telemarketer, it just ruined his day. The 6 months leading up to his 65th birthday, I gave him, at that point in time, he was in a wheelchair. So I gave him a couple grocery bags, the paper ones. I said, every single piece of junk mail I get from Medicare, just do me a favor, put in that bag and I'll help you go through it when I come by. In the 6 months before his 65th birthday, he filled up 3 of those grocery bags. Literally for those 6 months, I could not call him without, how if a telemarketer calls you, there might be a 2-second silence before they start talking. If I called my dad, I had to go, dad, 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 so he could hear my voice immediately and not hang up on me. So it's a miserable experience still. And there's really no independent, a lot of the advisors that listen to this podcast, we're independent. We pride ourselves in to be able to choose what to offer our clients and not have a necessary product to sell or be incentivized to sell one thing over the other. That's not the way Medicare works. You call up one of these numbers, they're going to have round peg that they're going to fit into a square hole. So what I've done is over the course of time, I've realized that there's only one major decision, and I'll get into that throughout this podcast, but there's only one decision I ask my clients to make, our prospects to make. And if they can tell me which philosophy they prefer, it makes my job easy and I can fill that round peg with round hole to round peg. So I've actually developed some intake forms. And, I launched a website a couple of years back where I really walk the people through the decision-making process. And I've made it systematized where I can, no matter which market you're in, as long as I have a little bit of time to research it ahead, myself and my team, we can, give independent advice in whatever market it may be, just by asking some simple questions. We really just need to know which philosophy you prefer, what your doctors are, what your prescriptions are, what your zip code is, and we can find we can analyze the plans ahead of time. It might take 15 minutes before the meeting, half hour to present to the client, and 15 minutes to take a telephone application. And at that point, our team can make the other financial advisors that are referring us look like superstars, keep their clients away from the Medicare Sharks that are swimming around them. And I call them sharks because, these Medicare people, they're going to sell what they want to sell. And invariably, there's going to be a follow-up saying, next time the market dips 3%, guess what they're going to offer your clients? Some sort of indexed or fixed annuity or some product that they can sell with their life license. So, not just making you look great to your clients and giving them the peace of mind that they're not going to go for an annual colonoscopy when it comes to Medicare, giving them the peace of mind, making them a referral, but it keeps your clients and ensures your client base from putting someone else across the table from them and giving them another voice that's not yours.
I would imagine, I can certainly be wrong on this, but like on a per client basis, Medicare isn't like a massive revenue opportunity for like a client scenario. It's more of I don't want to call it a loss leader because there's still some compensation involved, but basically you're helping them with a particular need in the hopes that through adding that value, you've done a good enough job to where they're open to continue conversations down the financial planning path. But for sakes of those who are listening that may not be involved in this space at all at this point, like what does it look like in terms of revenue that they would get in serving a person as it relates to Medicare?
It's more like you're dealing with a smaller account. So I think of Medicare as, for me personally, as me getting paid to prospect. So you're not going to get paid a ton to make a Medicare sale, but it gives you an opportunity to meet new people. There's all the statistics where 10,000 people a day turn 65. We've all heard those. And, most people, financial advisors at least, are talking about how to budget to pay for that expense. They're not talking about how to minimize that expense. And you can tell your clients all the time, like, hey, this is how much Medicare is going to cost you over the next 30 years. But still, your client has to go somewhere else to implement that. So for me, most of my new financial planning clients, the first 10 years of my career came through my Medicare seminar. So I see it as a great way to prospect and get, he said loss leader. But over the course of time, it became, definitely an additional revenue source. So I've definitely helped dozens of other advisors who want to make this a prospecting tool for them to get in front of more people, help them, figure out their market, figure out if there's a way to implement this, use some of the resources I've developed and recreate what I've done. That's certainly a path. A lot of the people I've helped do that after a year or two of doing it, there's a fallout of it. There's people who finally say, this is a little bit more complicated. I'd rather, have a trusted place to refer it to. So that's why, a couple of years into me training other people, I was approached to ask, hey, can you be my in-house Medicare expert, even though you're across the country? Can I set up a 15-minute Zoom with my clients for you to introduce it and help them figure this out? So there's definitely the two paths. One, if you want to make it like your old, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this did Social Security seminars. You didn't get paid to give Social Security advice, but that people 62 to 67 have this question on the top of their minds. And if you can present to them, show them how knowledgeable you are, show them your professionalism, and show them the level of advice, independence that you're giving, it's definitely an opportunity to strike up a new relationship. If you are not interested in making it the prospecting point and you just want to make sure that you're, servicing your clients well, you can definitely refer them to myself or another Medicare agent that you can trust. One neat thing about Medicare is if you have a life and health license, you can actually refer a Medicare business out and you receive a finder fee back. So you'd have to obviously talk to your broker dealers to find out if you're allowed to get referral fees. But I have people who refer me business, and every single time I make a sale, I'm able to give them a finder's fee for those Medicare. So if you wanted to make it a revenue stream, at this point, 50% of my revenue comes from Medicare. I've been doing it for 15 years. So it is a significant source of revenue for me and a significant source of new clients. But if you just want to make it a value add for your client base, that's an option as well.
So that additional context is helpful, but talking about specific numbers, if I bring you someone who's, 65 years old and you help them with their Medicare and I'm having you do most of the work because I don't want to be the expert in this scenario, what would on average or a range, like what would my compensation be to me?
Why do I do the average? Because every state has a different contract and a different. So one nice thing is depending on whether you do advantages or supplements, the advantage commissions in each state are uniform to help people not necessarily get a bonus for selling a certain product over the other. So if someone's turning 65 and they sign up for a Medicare Advantage plan, it's roughly a $500 one-time commission. And then each time it renews, you get half that. So your renewal commission is say $250. Some states are as little as $300. Some states are as much as $600. So it's a range, but from the states I've seen, let's call it, make the average $500. So if you make a $500 up front and the person's, on that plan for 10 years, the lifetime value might be a $3,000 lifetime value.
Awesome.
Hey, Model FAs. I know you're enjoying this conversation, but I wanted to take a quick break to talk to you about the Model FA Accelerator. This is a unique collaboration between us and you, where we help you build a financial advising practice that you can be proud of. We focus on the foundational concepts around how to pick a niche or a specialization, how to price your services, how to construct an offer that people are going to buy, and then how to market it and sell it in a way that'll get people to sign on the dotted line and become clients of your firm, all while giving you the information to scale and set up workflows and operational processes that will allow you to reclaim your time and build a practice that doesn't run you. So if you'd like to hear more about that, go to www.modelfa.com/accelerator or www.modelfa.com hover over Work With Us and click on Accelerator. Hope to see you in the program.
So the way I view it now that I'm making sense of it on my end is rather than, because in our business development process that we help advisors with, marketing is in order to get someone's attention. It's just a creative and ethical way that, trick someone to hang out with you, right? So that you can start to build a relationship and see if it makes sense to exchange some dollars and actually start working together. Now, after you initially get their attention, then it's all about offering what we call a give to get offer. A give to get offer is, if you think about an entire financial plan as like a pie, you take out a slice of that pie and help the client with that more pressing issue, because very rarely does someone wake up and, look at their spouse or look in the mirror and say, I need to find a fiduciary holistic planner and I need to address this entire thing. Usually it's, okay, I need to make a decision on Medicare, or I need to get my estate plan done, or I have an old 401k that I need to roll over. It's a particular problem or challenge that they need to work through. And then it's the advisor's job to help them with that and then ultimately bring them through the financial planning process. So I view this as a slice of that pie, so to speak. And there's a Medicare season, if I'm not mistaken, fall and the winter could be a great way to get referrals. So if you're working with, say, I know a lot of folks are, working in the retiree space and pre-retiree space. So it's great to say, hey, remember how, we helped you with that Medicare planning? Well, it's Medicare season again. Who in your world do you think that would be relevant for? Because I'd be happy to have a conversation with them, and see if, we can be of service in that regard. Or I think back to when I first started as an advisor, I was working with, younger folks, and I had to work with a lot of those younger folks to get the revenue up because they just didn't have enough time on this earth to, accumulate assets that were meaningful enough to, where I could have a lower volume, higher per revenue client scenario. So I was always looking for ways to what I call prospect up and get introduced to their parents. And, some of the mistakes I made in that stage of my life was offering an entire financial plan for them. And it's just a big undertaking. It's overwhelming. It's an easy can to kick down the road. But I view this as a way to get referred to some of your clients' parents who may be in that 65 range. Say, hey, let me help you with this. And then throughout that process, if they have a good experience, you do a good job building the relationship, they're more likely to in turn be open to continuing conversations, into the entire financial planning process. I view this as a way to obviously help them, but also to develop business. And there's an added benefit that you happen to perhaps make some revenue off this as well. De minimis in the beginning, but over time, if there's enough folks that bring you through, who knows, maybe that revenue turns into your marketing budget, right? Or maybe you use that for some other aspect of your business. I also view this, I have a client of mine actually who they have some junior advisors where every fall they're just presenting, they're on the phone, they're helping folks with this. And it's a good sort of feeder funnel into financial planning. So that kind of leads me to my next question. So let's say you come across 100 people that you're able to help with Medicare. Not everyone's going to be a qualified prospect for financial planning. So do you find that it's like 80% of folks will be a good financial planning client? Do you find that it's 5% of folks? Like what rough percentage is it so that advisors can start to think through, okay, what's the actual revenue opportunity? Because if they have a, say, $5,000 or $10,000 average revenue per client, and they know, hey, if I talk to 100 people about this, if 10 of them say yes, that's $5,000 based on the $500, commission. But then maybe it's, also another, what's that, $50,000 if they have a $5,000 per revenue, average client. So help me understand conversion rate, for lack of a better way to put it, on folks that they would help with Medicare compared to, who would continue to move forward through the financial planning process.
That's a great question. There's a lot in there too. So I want to address some of the couple of things you said as you were leading up to that question. So it definitely makes you infinitely more referable and being referred up. That's probably the best prospecting tool you have is, I'm sure you've noticed this. You can save a client, $300 on something. If they're making a couple $100,000, you save them $300. they're happy. But if they're aging parent, if you can save your aging parent $300 who might not have the best finances in the world, the same $300, that makes you good as gold to your client. So like, people want to help their relatives. And, so a lot of times you might get aged up. And if you can, and a lot of times, more often than not, the elder generation, I mean, how often does, your mom or your grandma call your tech support? My mother-in-law was just asking me how to do a video clip for YouTube. And I was just like, am I going to have to explain this to you over the telephone? So people are relying on their younger kids, and it's not necessarily their expertise. So it's going to definitely put you in front of your clients' parents for sure. And especially if it's something you're doing on an annual basis, your clients that you've helped in the past. I've had clients come to 10 of my Medicare seminars, and each year they bring their sister or a different friend and stuff like that. They go for their refresher course because they know me, and then they bring a couple people each year. So it's definitely makes you more referable. One nice thing is it's a short selling season, like you mentioned, October 15th through December 7th. You have a 7-week period every single year where people are trained that this is when they're going to do this. So you might do, some seminars, you might do something like that, but it's compact. And the way you follow up with those people, you nailed it. Like you're going to end up not necessarily converting all these people, all the great prospects to it. But I still get people years after the fact who signed up for Medicare plan maybe 3 or 4 years ago. They've been invited to a market outlook seminar. They've been invited to a estate planning seminar. They're invited to all these different presentations I've done, and they've been on my mailing list. And eventually someone might say, hey, I do have the old 401k. My other financial advisor hasn't reached out to me in 3 years, and you've reached out to me 15 times. Maybe I'll want your opinion on it. So it might not be an immediate thing. So the percentages, and it really depends on how you want to follow up on and how you want to track the percentages and what your minimum client is. You mentioned a junior advisor. A lot of times, through these Medicare seminars, someone might have a $50,000 CD or a long-term care need. If you consider a transaction a client, your percentages will go up. Or if you have a junior advisor who wants to sell a $50,000 fixed annuity, there's definitely those opportunities. But like I said, I've built for my practice solely on Medicare and Medicare referrals. So the opportunities there, my rough numbers are 10%. So for every 10 enrollments, eventually, whether it be 3 months or 3 years, 10% of those people will become financial planning clients. And it gives you an opportunity to present your professionalism and, more importantly, do some fact finding. There's questions during the Medicare sales process, like how much you're paying for Medicare Part B. The answer is going to tell you how much income they make. So you can do some still fact finding. And if someone says, I pay $428 a month for my Medicare Part B, a light bulb goes up in my mind saying that person makes more than $300,000 and he's 70 years old. He's probably got some major estate planning things. So I'm going to make sure I put them on my estate planning drip list.
Yeah, I didn't even take into consideration the fact that, if you're doing this with decent enough of volume, I think depending on the advisor's bandwidth, maybe it makes sense for him or her to do this themselves. I lean more so towards having someone else do it for you. Then the thing I didn't take into consideration is the contact info that you have. And if you're following up with something valuable over time and staying in front of them, they're going to potentially trust you some more. And like we run, for example, webinars.
Before you go, let me expand on what you just said. So out of the 100 people you're asking, not all 100 is going to sign up for Medicare, but all 100 are going to ask me for my advice. And sometimes it's a more powerful thing when you can sit across the table from someone and say, what you currently have is right. And if it's not, please contact me again in the future. And now they're going to trust you even more. Or, that group plan you have, I wouldn't switch that. That's great. So, your Medicare is all set. Thank you very much for your time. And then now they're on your list and they realize you're not a salesperson anymore. You're now an advisor. And,
right.
So whereas I'm not out there to try and make a bunch of $500 sales. I'm out there to try and market myself as a professional. And if you show people that you're doing what's right, you're going to stand out from the crowd of all the other Medicare Sharks and all the other people trying to give them colonoscopies each year.
Yeah. And what I was going to say too is, we help a lot of people with their like webinars and seminars. And what we notice is that the longer they run those, the more successful they are because your list just continues to get built. I mean, if you're retargeting for the other things that may be relevant to them, like, Social Security planning after the Medicare stuff or estate planning, things along those lines. And they've shown perhaps that, they're open to learning. So if they continue to learn from you, they're more likely to, do business ultimately. So
I could definitely learn a lot from you. Last year was the first year I switched from completely, in-person, old school 2005 style marketing where I was sending out invites and direct mail and presenting, physical location to trying to switch. And I invested some money on a very professional Medicare 101 video, but I really need to learn about the Facebook ads, retargeting and things like that. And, so basically if you want to talk offline on that, I'd would love the opportunity to hear your thoughts on my best way to start transitioning more digitally.
Yeah, that could be good. I think moving forward, our belief is that it's going to be more a combination of the two, because webinars had been working fairly well. But over time, we think that people will just get webinar fatigue over time, and they're potentially a little bit more distracted because they have their phones on them and other things pop up on their computer. So we view it as the fact that we will pivot back towards seminars as everything continues to open up. And then part of the retargeting will be through those webinars and perhaps sprinkle in, a live webinar here or there. So, certainly we can talk about that.
Even as the warm-up process. So if another advisor refers a client to me, I'll give them an option to send their client a YouTube link of the 30-minute Medicare 101. But I say, really all you need to do, like I said in the beginning, there's one decision, what philosophy you like better. So I have a 7-minute clip that breaks down the difference between Advantage plans and supplement plans. And I tell people, just watch that and tell me which plan is talking to you, which philosophy do you prefer? And if they watch that 7-minute clip and they come to me and they say, I like this plan versus this, here's my zip code, here's my doctors, my job is simple, as able to pick them a plan. So I'm noticing the power of, using the digital means to try and educate the people before you meet with them. And then the conversations really is just you giving your expertise. I got an email the other day, someone said, I watched your video 3 times and I've sent it to 30 different people. Every single person I talk to and they bring up Medicare, I forward your video to it. And I'm like, well, that's pretty awesome. So
love it. So with that being said, I feel like we have a good understanding of the opportunity and how that can be used as a value add and perhaps a business development tool as well. So I know that there may be some folks that get excited about that, but don't necessarily know a ton about Medicare at this point in time. So if I'm an advisor and I'm listening to this and I say, hey, that could be pretty intriguing, and I think I could see myself implementing that, what's the best way to get in touch with you, Scott?
So 2 ways I would suggest. Number 1 is check out my Medicare website. It's medicarebythrive.com. And when you go to the homepage, there's going to be 2 paths. You can go either for clients or for advisors. So if you go to the advisor section, there's going to be a button to click, learn more about this opportunity. Really it's a page about, the opportunity, but it also puts you in contact with me, a form to fill in. And I'd also suggest if you're an advisor, go to see what the client sees. If you refer a client to me, go to the client side and see kind of the resources and the education of it. So I would definitely suggest going to medicarebythrive.com and checking out both sides of the website. Or if you just want to go directly to me, my email is scott@medicarebythrive.com.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So before we wrap up, I do ask all my guests what their favorite books are or what their favorite book is. And when we were talking before, kind of chuckled when I heard the theme of books, but you did mention that you had a nice little spin on it. So you had mentioned, I believe you said you have a 5-year-old. So you jokingly said any books that have to do with dinosaurs, but you said you would tie that into, some other stuff here. So tell me why you said that.
I've got actually 3 little kids, 7, 5, and 2. So, there's certain types of people who know a ton about dinosaurs. It's either if you're a paleontologist, a 5-year-old, or a parent of a 5-year-old. And, my older kid was the same way at the same age, just obsessed with them. And when I read these books, I got one right on my desk from reading to them this morning. When I read these books, it really, hits home to me because being a numbers person, we talk about longevity and all these legacies and all these different stuff like that. Like we've only as humans been on this earth for such a short period of time. And you take a look at, the T-Rex on the earth for 100 million years, so what kind of mark do you want to leave? And, not just he's obsessed with dinosaurs. He wants to know who lived when and did they know each other and, what. So anyway, right now I'm in a deep dive of dinosaurs. You ask me any dinosaur fact, I can rattle it off or who lived when. And, but for me, I think, with our practice, longevity and legacy are the 2 things that we talk to clients about. And, so I think dinosaurs fits right into there.
Love it. Well, Scott, I appreciate you joining. For those of you who are listening, as I mentioned, this could be an excellent business development opportunity for you, a way to add value to clients and the folks in their world. So if you found this valuable and you think others would find it valuable, go ahead and click that share button, let them know what the episode is about and why they should listen. And if you would be so kind as to leave us a review, I'd really appreciate that as well. And if you take a screenshot of that review once it's posted and shoot me a text to 978-228-2338 with the word Medicare alongside it, so I know which episode it's in regards to. We have a video from an event that we had done recently, goes through advisor advisor DNA is what we call it, specialization with marketing and some business development oriented stuff. And I'd be happy to share that with you as a thank you for doing so. So again, that number is 978-228-2338. And with that, Scott, appreciate you joining us today. And for everyone listening, we will see you on the next episode. Take care.